All right, here we go. Discipline to Win podcast, episode 16. Here back with just Nick Frazetta and I. Today we're going to talk about decentralized leadership, talk about lessons learned using it in the military, which is where I learned it, and how we've been able to transition the same leadership and management style into our business. So I guess really Nick just called me a week or two ago and he had a pretty cool moment where he's currently reading Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership. And Nick was like, everything I'm reading in this book is stuff that you've talked to me about 2.5 years ago. So I guess share your, sort of enlightenment that you've been having reading that book and how you've seen it before you even knew that we were sort of using it.
For sure. Yeah. So Extreme Ownership. And then the other one that he wrote, him and Leif Babin, it's The Dichotomy of Leadership. And there's a lot of different things that they talk about within the two books, but one of the main topics and something that you've talked about since the beginning is decentralized leadership.
Yeah.
As you're scaling an organization, it's obviously very easy at the beginning in your business you have to be hands-on with every single decision that's
100%.
made, because one, there's a lack of people. Two, you're probably just figuring it out yourself. So
100%.
you need to learn from decisions that you've made and be like, okay, was that a good decision? Was that a bad decision? And get that foundation in place. And then from there, you can teach people that come into your business that are going to be new leaders or hired to be new leaders to kind of follow a similar decision-making process of how you want the business to be guided, while still giving them full authority to make independent decisions within their left and right bounds. So it was a real eye-opener because, obviously your military background, you talked about a lot of different things. It's very consistent across. Obviously they're special forces. They're talking about their experiences in Ramadi, Iraq, and all of the different missions and how decentralized leadership allowed them to succeed in the most chaotic and hostile environment that the world has seen in a very long time, which was that war in Afghanistan and Iraq. So it was really interesting to see. And the number one thing that really is decentralized leadership is you have to empower other people in your organization to make decisions that are within their left and right bounds. You cannot be a leader that has meetings all day, that calls everybody into a room to make every single decision down to what color are we putting on this type of ad, or what are we doing with this situation, or whatever it is. You can't make every decision in your business. What you have to be able to do is you effectively train your people at the beginning, and then you have to give them the ability to make decisions. Yes, they're going to make decisions that are incorrect, but even if you were in that position, you're going to make decisions 100%. That are incorrect. So,
and then when you do, you really learn from it.
Exactly.
Because that was your plan that you were bought into, and then it's a little humbling where it's well, damn, I got my ass kicked here, but at least I had got that learning opportunity rather than seeing someone else fail, which you're really not going to care about because it wasn't your plan.
And when you're scaling, right now we're in this massive growth phase of our company, and there's so many new locations going on. There's so many new leaders that are emerging within our organization, and we have meetings all the time with our mid-level leadership of you're making these decisions and we trust that you're going to make decisions. I just had a conversation this morning with one of our people that came to me with a question that was well within their left and right boundaries. And it's hey, I trust that you can make that decision. You make the decision. If there's higher level problems that arise from that decision, or you think you made an incorrect decision, come to me, we can talk through it. But ultimately, the only way for you to continue to level up and scale is other people making decisions. So with your military experience, was that something very early on that they taught you? Obviously, you went through officer training school, and I'm sure at the beginning it was more just getting through it, but then you develop a lot of these new ways of thinking about how do I lead men to literally wage war. How did that translate, number one, up front, and then how did it translate into starting your business?
Yeah, so it's a brand new concept to anybody, right? Because everyone sort of fantasizes when they're younger, because what do people usually hate? Authority. Every kid, the initial authority they hate is their parents, and then you get into high school and you hate your teachers telling you what to do. So when you're a kid, you sort of fantasize about, wow, someday it'd be awesome to call the shots. And I think that that's sort of naturally where it starts for people, to where they just want to make all the decisions, because all their life you've been told, hey, you need to do this way. You can't do this, to where you want to, in whatever your field is, be that guy or gal that's making the calls and, putting your name on stuff. So it's very forced for anyone to really learn decentralized leadership, because it's like, wait a minute, I thought I was supposed to call the shots. You know what I mean? To where it's not, and not everybody's good at it, and not everybody can learn it. So I think it's what separates good leaders from, I don't want to say bad leaders, because leaders usually don't stick around. If they're bad leaders, they fail and eventually have to go do something else. So I think that for me at first, definitely not natural. And I guess I will give you my first example of in the military having to lick my wound of not using decentralized leadership. And this is at the most basic scale. But it taught me immediately, oh, wait, yeah, you're going to fail if you're trying to do everything. So when I'm in my officer training, I finally was put into a leadership position, and I had to literally get 3 of my little subordinate units all on the same page about literally where we're moving to. And I was put into the spot, off the cuff. It was like, hey, you're now in charge. You got to take your unit, move them to this grid coordinate. And so instead of literally bringing my 3 subordinate leaders into me and just saying, hey, this is the objective, figure out how you're going to get us there, I was running all over the place, going to this unit, telling them, hey, this is where we need to go. This is how I want you to go there, do this, this, and this. And then I was going to somebody else, and then I wasn't giving them the same information. Then I was going to somebody else. And before I even stepped off, my leadership pulled me in, and they were like, Nick, you are running around like a chicken with its head cut off right now. Stop. Pause. Bring everybody into you. Say, this is what I need you to do, and then let them go to work. And I did exactly what he said. I paused, stopped running around, got on the radio, said, hey, I need squad leaders coming to me right now, and gave them my intent, the end state, which was, hey, this is where you need to go, and then let them figure out how they were going to collectively get there, and it went out without a hitch. So usually, it's very rare you're going to be in a leadership position where, honestly, you have more skill set or knowledge than the subject matter experts that you're leading. If you do, it's usually a founder-type organization, not somewhere where you get promoted. And when you're in a founder-type organization, you want to get subject matter experts that are way higher level than you on the things that you have them doing for you. So you have to humble yourself really quickly and learn to say, hey, here's my end state for you. And then, here is my key task. This has to get done along the way. But however you need to figure it out to get there, you have to empower people to make those decisions. So whenever it's someone else's plan that they get to come up with, they now have ownership, which means they're now 100% committed to that way of doing things. And if it doesn't work out exactly how you foresaw it, but you did get to that end state, then as a leader, you should be happy. Because as a leader, really, at the end of the day, you just need results. And if your people figure out how to get there and get the result you wanted, and it took a day too long, or hell, they might do it a day quicker, that's fine. And they're going to learn along the way and build up their own standard operating procedures to get better and better along the way. If you're coming in and micromanaging everything and say, I need you to do it exactly like this, and this, all they're going to do is probably skip one of those steps because it wasn't their own plan. They won't even get there, rather than them being able to figure out a way to get there along the way. So really, to answer your question, I learned it in the purest form of leadership, which is taking men from point A to point B and having them violently execute violence.
War.
War on an enemy, oppositional force.
Yeah.
So that's the purest form of leadership. So me, finance background, I wanted to commission into the infantry because there's no more pure form of leadership than convincing men to commit violence against other men as a collective unit. So a lot of hardship comes with that. And then when I had to, really around the time you came on is when we had enough people to where I could even exercise decentralized leadership in our own organization. It was an easy transition for me because we're, we don't have weight on our back. We're not, in harm's way. We all have ample sleep. The stakes were a lot lower. But what's interesting is that was in the upfront. Almost now the stakes have become higher because there's millions of dollars on the line, fast forward all these years later. So it's different stakes. Nobody's life is at risk, but in a way it is, because if we do fail and don't get to where we're going, it's our lives that are legitimately get ruined and, takes us 7 years to get back. So the stakes are high in different ways in military versus business. But I think, military purest way to execute it, but business, it can be done the same exact way. And I think that, you coming in not being a leader here, growing into a leader here and learning that type of leadership style, especially now where you're living in, a different state than some of the offices we have and home office, and you're having to exercise that yourself for all the teams that, you're leading. I would say that you're seeing that's the only way that really you can lead a large scale team, especially when you're in different states and things like that. Like why in the military it's needed is because on the battlefield, there might not be time for your subordinate leader to get you on the radio, inform you of the situation, lay out what things look like on the battlefield. By the time you're making a decision for them, their guys might be killed.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure, that's a big thing that Jocko talks about as far as like needing to be able to make very quick decisions. Empowering your leaders gives them the ability to do that, which time is everything.
Yeah.
So you're now going through that in business of trying to give your subordinate leaders all of the information and tools they need to be able to make their own decisions. I witnessed it, the situation you were talking about this morning.
Yep.
You gave confidence. You said, hey, as long as you gave a left and right limit, which I always say you need to give people their left and right limits to be able to take initiative within that. You were like, hey, as long as it meets this and this, scale, it's your decision to make. And then people really appreciate that.
They do.
And what I think you've been extremely good at is I can say that like me and your working relationship has always been fantastic because like I've never even had to tell you, hey, this is what you need to like bring to me to get my buy-in. You've done a really good job of just like having a good knowledge of the business and like a pulse of the business to know like what you should get my input for. And I've never had to tell you like, hey, you didn't need to come to me for this. You need to like handle this at your level. Like you do a really good job of like making decisions like when they arise right away. So that's definitely kudos to you because I can tell you, you've learned that way quicker than in the military. 95% of the people that I've worked with were at the purest level. I'm like grabbing a squad leader or a team leader and being like, you need to be able to make this fucking call to like return fucking fire and then go assault this objective without having to run it up the chain. Like you've learned it way quicker than they have. So I guess like from your perspective, what was the biggest challenge with you of like seeing how that decentralized leadership should work? And was it challenging for you to like learn that relationship with me? Has it been challenging for you to like sort of implement that relationship with your own subordinate leaders? Like what are the challenges that you've faced there and hurdles?
I would say the biggest challenge that I personally faced was similar to your original point where you went to each different squad and you were like, this is how you need to do things.
Yeah.
I was getting way too in the weeds of like, okay, this is exactly how it needs to be done, and this is how I need to direct it to the people that are gonna like carry it out.
Yeah.
So that's where I was struggling at the beginning, where I wasn't, and Jocko talks about this too. It's like your direction has to be simple. It has to be simple, concise, and then depending on the initiatives, your subordinate leaders need to be able to prioritize and execute on those initiatives. So at the beginning, I would say I was giving direction that was a little bit too complex or was a little bit too extended, or it was just really in the weeds to where I quickly learned, okay, like here's what we need to get done. Here's, let's say, the department that needs to do task A, B, and C. I need to be able to deliver this in a super simple, concise way, and then I've trained these leaders. I've showed them how I analyze decision making and how I make decisions. They then need to be able to understand, okay, what's priority task? How do I execute on that task? And give them that decision. Now, every single time, are they going to be 100% right on how they prioritize and execute those tasks? No.
Right.
But it becomes a learning experience. And then as they go forward, they become better and better and better. So I think I was exposed to that early. Obviously, at the beginning, I made decisions that weren't correct. And then I quickly learned, hey, this probably wasn't the best way to go about this. Now I know I should have done A, B, C, and I should have executed it in this order. And we're still learning that every single day. We just had to talk like with an initiative we're working on to where, hey, we probably should have done this first. This should have been priority. And then we should have moved to this. And we kind of flopped them. And it's caused some issues, but hey, we learned about it. And now we know for our next location or our next region, this is the way we're going to go about it. It's going to be a lot smoother. So I think people try to, and they think they're being like, oh, I'm a really effective leader because I'm giving every single detail to the person that to the department or departments that I'm directing, and it's going to show them exactly how to execute upon that. But really what that does is, one, it takes the confidence out of the subordinate leader that you're directing the task to. So they no longer have confidence. They're most likely no longer going to bring ideas to you, which I'm very open to in our organization. Is like, hey, if you are on like ground level, if you're on the battlefield and you're noticing that there's an inefficiency, or you're noticing that there's something we can do a little bit better, that's your job to bring that to me.
So in the Army, they call that a PIR, or priority intelligence requirement.
Yes.
Like, and that's a good thing too, of like, it's important to let your people know, like, hey, like, if this comes up, like, I need to know about this.
Yeah.
To where like that's the perfect example.
And
there.
that's like, so that's what I tell everyone on our team is like, if you're noticing an inefficiency, bring me that inefficiency, because one of two things are going to happen. One, we're going to reframe the system or the standard operating procedure that we have in place to make it more efficient and more effective, or you're not fully following the standard operating procedure that we have in place, to where you think you're doing it correctly, but you're not. And then I can show you this is how you should be going about it, and then it's going to work and go smoothly. So again, that's your job in training, to let your subordinate leaders know, hey, if these things come up, you need to bring them to me. But it's also on them that they need to be able to make decisions. And again, it's not for everyone. So some people aren't going to be able to kind of take that leap and be like, okay, we're doing this, and go with it. The people that fall into the most trouble are the thinkers, or the idea man, where, oh yeah, this would be great in theory, or oh, this would be great in theory, where I would rather than give me all of this time thinking and maybes and shoulds, go execute on an initiative, it not work, and then you now know how it works, so that going forward you could be effective and you can go that route. Because if you're a thinker or you're an idea person, that's one thing that neither of us ever are. No. I will make 100 mistakes before I ever think about 100 different things. I'll think of something, analyze it quickly, boom, make a decision. If it's not correct, then we'll pivot, and we know exactly what went wrong, and then we can execute going forward.
We've probably had 10 of these moments together in just the last couple of years, of where, like, we'll either know we have a really good opportunity and we'll take massive action on it, like literally like same day, or we know like something is awry. And we will take massive action same day. Like, you can figure out a whole lot along the way. Just taking like immediate action is what we've seen is the difference between us and probably 90% of other organizations. So like, again, from the Army, so everyone here has heard of George Patton, you know, a huge general during World War II. And one of the quotes I love from him is, a plan violently executed is always better than a plan perfectly planned. To where, like, the perfect plan might take 3 weeks, but if you take just a plan and execute it violently right away with massive execution, you now have regained the initiative. Like, again, just doing anything with massive efforts or, you know, urgency is usually going to be way better than something that might take 3 weeks to, like, perfectly plan out, because while you were perfectly planning that, the enemy has had 3 weeks to steal the initiative back and gain the advantage. And a lot of people look at business like it's very friendly, and, you know, everyone's in this to make money, everyone's in this to succeed. Like, make no mistake, at the end of the day, we are trying to take food off of other people's table, and at the same time we're doing that, they're trying to take food off of our table.
Correct.
So, like, it is not friendly, it is not fun and games. Like, this is our life, and a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy, and you do say the same thing, which is why we get along perfectly, to where it's like, whenever we know someone has wronged us in business, or where we now have a direct competitor, I'm trying to bankrupt them. Like, immediately, because this is not friendly. Like, this is them against us, and I know that we have the capability to operationalize our team to violently execute any task. And if you can achieve that in business and get regular people who have not signed up to go to war to take violent execution and initiative, then you can pretty much do anything. And we've seen that. We've taken violent execution and initiative in 10 different initiatives. And obviously, it's all culture. It is all also rewarding your people and making sure that you take care of them for taking care of the task at hand. But I would say that people I'm sure when our people are out mingling in the community and talking to employees of other companies, they probably think that they're insane for how, we work and how our team moves and reacts and pivots and takes action. So I can say that in the other companies I worked at before our own, that would be freaking crazy. Nobody would ever do anything like that. And your experience at the bank, I'm sure, is the exact same. People would have said, go screw yourself if someone would have asked them to do the things that we ask our people to do. So, like, I think the culture that we've created really separates us in our ability to take violent action or massive initiative towards any task. So I think that everyone should try to create the culture of what you want your team to be able to execute on, for sure.
It does, because you can't, like, whether it's waging war or whether it's building a company, you can't expect effective decentralized leadership if the leaders, the subordinate leaders, don't believe in the mission of what you're building as the founder or business owner per se. Like, you need to have a strong enough culture to where everybody is aligned towards one mission and they're willing to do whatever it takes to execute that mission. Because if you have people that aren't bought into that, they're not going to be able to effectively lead. They're not going to be able to effectively make decisions that are going to continue to drive you 1 yard closer to that initiative. And they need to be as bought in as we are, on to the point that, like, at the end of the day, we're selfish. Like, if there's another competitor in our organization, especially in our backyard, like, I want to take every single customer and client off of them. And
100%.
like, some people think that's bad. It's like, oh no, well, you should let them. Like, no, like, because I know that we're going to treat them better, and I know that our way of doing things, I firmly believe, is better than everyone else for that client. Like, Andy Elliott's greatest, like, the best quote is like, you're doing the client a disservice if you do not close them, if you truly believe in what you're building, because they're going to go to somewhere else and they're going to get subpar service, and that's your fault that you did not bring them into your business. So, like, I have a ton of passion about that like, if they're down the street and they have people in our backyard and they're serving our community, like, I'm taking that. Like, that's ours, because, like, number one, the client doesn't deserve to be served at a subpar standard, and number two, like, they're operating in our realm. Like, this is like, and we take a lot of pride in that, especially in our, like, home community, to where, like, it's ours. These are, like, our people. And to effectively be able to decentralize your leadership, your subordinate leaders have to be bought in just as much as you, because we can't be in our 9 different locations
at the same
doing that at the same time, going out and grabbing every new client or whatever it is, a new customer in your business. You can't do that all the time because you're focusing on the overall picture. So your subordinate leaders need to be able to go out into the field and execute that with that same vision that you've built for the overall organization.
And how you achieve that buy-in, and like, me and you have these conversations all the time. If I'm like giving you something like, hey, like, we need to do this right now, it all comes down to task and purpose. If you get on the phone with somebody, or I get on the phone with somebody, and let's say it's 8 o'clock at night, they're already home with their family, and it's like, hey, you need to come in here right now. I don't know how long we'll be here. I don't know when you'll get home. They're going to be like, yeah, no thanks. I'll see you in the morning. But if you call someone and say, hey, I know you're at home with your family, but I need you in here right now. I don't know when you'll go home. I don't know when we'll be done, but here is why this is so important, the purpose. It's a lot easier for people to rationalize. And honestly, it's your responsibility as a leader to let them know. If you're just giving blind tasks without the purpose, you're never going to have people that are bought into whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So like, every single task that you give, it should be task and purpose, task and purpose, task and purpose. Why is this important? Now, if you're like in the nitty gritty and like you're in that mode and you tell someone like, hey, do this right now, and they're like, but why? Then like that's different to where like one-off tasks. But like, for every big initiative, like, there should be a very strong purpose behind that. And I think it's your responsibility to let your people know that.
Definitely.
And then they can buy in and know like, okay, this is why we're doing this. And they can share your task and purpose. And I can tell you, like, from the military, it's in that zone, like, let's say you're out in the field and you're operational and your guys have just made a 8-kilometer movement. They haven't slept. They've been up, training all night. And you're just like, hey guys, like, I know you're spent right now, but like, I need you to get over and like take that fucking hill over there. After they just like thought that they were done, you're probably going to get a whole lot of like, yeah, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like you need to give them that purpose of, no, this is why it's mission critical. This is why we have to do that. Because your leaders at the end of the day, like your subordinate leaders, they all have their own teams. And if they don't have the purpose of the whole mission, like what are they going to tell their team? Like, oh, like Nick told me.
Yep.
And then like, that's not strong enough. Like
Yeah.
because you owe them the purpose for them to give their own teams of like, and a way that you can make sure that's happening as a leader is you can spot check. Like when you're in the middle of any operation or any initiative or project, like just stop by the most junior person on your team or junior person in the office and be like, hey, Johnny, do you know why we're doing this? And then if they can't articulate that, then you've got a problem like of communication and making sure that stuff gets down to the lowest level. And again, you want to foster that environment of bottom-up refinement to where if like there's real problems, like that it's also flowing the opposite way. Like it needs to, if it's a big enough problem, it should flow from the bottom the whole way up to the top. So that, because there's some things that change can only be affected for some things at our level to where like, if it's a decision that is at our level and has to be made for us, you want an organization where communication flows the complete other way also, where bottom-up refinement to where we actually find out something that we thought was a great idea and helped everybody. If, let's say, it hurts everybody, like we need to be getting that bottom-up refinement too. So that all goes back to the culture and the environment that you want to foster as a leader. That bottom-up refinement is crucial.
And proper training too, because with bottom-up like communication flow, again, you got to make sure that your subordinate leaders, if it's in like within the left and right boundaries, that if something flows to them, there's most likely they can handle that at their level and not to have it go up to the top. That's what's really hard sometimes as you scale. If your leaders don't understand, again, what the purpose of the mission is or the objective, too many things will then flow up to you. And then you'll start getting bogged down in like all of these little weed tasks that like your subordinate leader should be taken care of. So it's a very fine line. Again, that just comes with time.
It's all relationship.
It's all relationship.
You got to build that trust and like.
And we went through like the problems too, where like every single little minute detail was flowing up to us, and then it's like, okay, like you're able to make this decision, like make the decision. Even if they did and it was wrong, they learned from it, and then boom, okay, that's taken care of. Now, like anything else that will come up in the future, which it will, that's aligned with that, they know exactly how to handle it, they know what direction to take, and they can make a swift decision on taking care of it. Now, if it's above and it's a bigger issue or it's outside of their left and right bounds, then that's something that then flows up to the top. And those things, as you scale, they should get, like the problems will get bigger for us, but there should be less and less of them because there's more middle level and lower level leadership that's taking care of the initial flow of communication that's coming up. So again, that's a time thing. We're still not even at the point of like where we have that completely refined. I think that's very hard to do.
It all comes down to confidence at the end of the day, is people's confidence in themselves and people's confidence in the entire ecosystem that you create inside of your organization. And that's something that just does not happen overnight for many people. Like, to give you a lot of kudos, like the amount of confidence that you built in yourself in an extremely short amount of time to handle the amount of responsibility and oversight and subordinate leaders that you have now, like that just doesn't happen. Like to compare it to the military, like at your age, and I'll call it your time in service, or like time inside our organization, which is literally only 2.5 years. In the military, at 2.5 years, people are still legitimately only responsible for themselves. Like literally, they're not even put in charge of like another human being at 2.5 years. It's legitimately in the military about 4 to 5 years before you're in charge of 3 or 4 people. And it's so low level that you're like making sure that they like went to the bathroom and like ate and like have their equipment on their person. Like that would be like right now if your only responsibility was like walking down the hall to 2 offices and being like, hey, do you have enough ink in your printer? Or like, have you ate lunch today? Like that's the level of responsibility. Like to get to like your level of responsibility in the military is usually legitimately like on the enlisted side, like 15 years. On the officer side, it's like 7 years. So it's like very profound achievement as far as what you've been able to accomplish inside a couple of years. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to your dedication, your willingness to learn, and like being extremely humble and not like having any ego around it. And I think that's what has accelerated you quicker than anyone I've seen in a, a leadership or growth capacity. So I guess to all of the listeners that are listening to this, like a lot of people look at you and they're like, how the fuck did he do this in like such a quick period of time? Like, how could you have like that level of growth in literally just 2.5 years? Like, what's the biggest thing that you could tell everybody listening that accelerated your growth, accelerated your knowledge? And again, it comes down to confidence in yourself, because we're all learning every single day. Like, we're nowhere near subject matter experts, like in most things. So I guess like, what is the biggest thing that you could identify that's built that confidence in where you're at today?
So, I mean, where you started me out at, you gave me so much guidance and direction to where obviously that helped a ton. Like for me to get the amount of experience of like leadership without you like having military background and like pumping that into the air of the company and then into me directly was super, super helpful. And that allowed me to get to a level very quickly of being able to like manage people and make higher level decisions. But for me internally, it really comes down to self-awareness. Like you have to know what you're good at and what you're lacking at very quickly. And that was something I've always been very in touch with. Like, what am I good at? What am I not good at? And then things that I'm not good at, how do I train or get high level knowledge on those things? So, I mean, ultimately, and I hate that because it's like, it's such a blanketed answer of like, you just have to work super hard. But like, I can just honestly say that people are like, oh, how the fuck did you do this? Or, oh, you're only like, you just turned 25. How are you doing this? I worked harder than you. Like I did. Like there's no shortcuts around it. Like I trained more than you. I read more than you. Like I studied people who do it better than we do a lot. I asked questions. Like I was in the office before you. I was in the office longer than you. There is no shortcut. Like I just worked harder than you, and it's now starting to show. And the more you continue to do that, the more you will become more self-aware, the more your skills will be polished, the more that you will learn. And I think that's just a testament to how you and I work. And I don't want to say we're the hardest workers in the world, but I can guarantee that like if you put other people next to us, like we're not stopping. Like we'll die before we stop.
For sure.
Because like there's nothing else that matters like to us other than like how do we continue to like enrich the lives of others and create the best place to not only work but the best place to be a client and customer at and work at and provide for the people around us. And we have really, really strong passion in that, and we will work till literally death to accomplish that. So that's really where it has to be. It's a mindset of self-awareness and then actually taking action on that self-awareness of like, okay, I'm not good at these things. How do I get better at these things? Like I need to find avenues, or I need to find people that are better at these things and learn from them and ask them questions and get experiences with them. And that's just what it comes down to. So
that's something that you've been committed to, I think, since day one. As far as I can remember you were always trying to seek more expert level knowledge, you were always reading, you were always trying to find another way up, always trying to like figure out a better way. And I think a lot of it is, well, I'd say 90% of it is for sure work ethic. And 10% of it is like, you just have to want it. And it has to just be who you are. We had another podcast that we just did recently, and it's like, you almost have to shed an identity of who you used to be and become a new person. It's like when you're a kid and you look up to superheroes or whoever you want to be, you have to almost become the own superhero in your own life. And you have to build that confidence in yourself that like, you can't have the imposter syndrome. Like you have to like build it up like, like I am him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm capable of this. Like I can do this. And you can't feel bad for yourself. Like you could get into a spot where you feel all of this pity around like, oh, like life's so hard for me. But like, it's what you create. It's what you want. Like you want things that are hard. Like if anything would be easy or get easy, I know that we're playing way too small of a game. And it's so true. Like we were talking about it over the weekend, to where like I don't think there's a day that we've had in a long time where we've like started the day and everything just went according to plan. No new problems came up. It's like you're getting kicked in the dick every day. And you just have to continue to put out and take it head on relentlessly, not feel bad for yourself, and just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And eventually it pays
People
off.
don't see that either. Like, I was with a lot of friends this weekend, and obviously I'm very far ahead of a lot of them. So it's like, oh, how did you do this? Oh, you must live this like glorious life and everything is great. And I'm like, dude, trust me. Like, you do, like, it's my job to never show that, because it's never my, like, I would never want to show that to any of our people or anyone of my family.
Right.
But like, every single day it is a lot of like high level stress, like high level, like, are we going to make it this month? Like, am I going to be bankrupt? Like, those things are going on constantly. It's not this glorious life of being a business owner. It's honestly fucking sucks a lot of the time. Like, majority of the time it is terrible. And you are like, did I do this right? You're second guessing yourself. You're like, wow, I could have been way better there. Like, when you're reflecting, and
like, think back in the last 6 months, how many decisions we made that could have lost us the company, could have like ruined the company, or like implications to where it's like, is it all gonna fold or is it all gonna crumble? And like, you're making those decisions constantly. And there's, again, we've created our own little mini universe to where there's really nobody else that understands besides the people that we're in the trenches with every day. So it's not even like you can go and like vent or seek other like advice, to where you can in a way subjectively, but people don't really understand it at the end of the day. And when you're not living it, like, let's say you would make a phone call for some advice, like, they're in your world for 10 minutes, but as soon as the phone goes click, like, people are living their own life. So like, it's not like they're up thinking about it, to where I know that, you know, we've had a lot of moments that were touch and go over the last 6 to 7 months, to where, you know, we're on the phone at 10, 11 o'clock at night, just weighing our options of, you know, what call are we going to make? And like, dude, that shit like makes your chest hurt. You know what I mean? To where it's like, that's some heavy shit.
It is.
It's like, for me, it's invaluable to have someone to go through all that shit with, because before you came along, like, I'm making those calls alone, and it's definitely the output and the benefit of having a team to be in the trenches with, of people that you trust 110%. Like, it's invaluable for sure to go through life with those people. So, first off, you know, I didn't even think we'd end up at this point in the podcast.
I know.
But I'm always getting emotional. But thank you for like being that person for me, because it's tough, dude. It's tough.
Yeah, it's a lonely fucking road. Like, it's lonely. Like, the life that we live is a lonely one. And luckily we have strong support systems in like girlfriends, spouses, like your immediate family, my immediate family, that is like a really strong support system, as well as all of the amazing people that we have at our organization to like, like, kind of execute on everything that we're trying to execute. We would never be able to do it without all of them. But I mean, yeah, the week, like, it's those late Saturday nights and you're on the phone, or you're like, dude, how the fuck are we going to figure this one out? Like, it's like, this is...
It's like you're faced with like 2 bullets, and it's like, which one do you want to take your shot?
It's like, how do we do this? But like, to circle the whole way back onto like our original topic of decentralized leadership before we wrap up here, is like, you, like, in an ideal situation, your leaders need to have the same mindset as us. And yes, you're having the same, like, everything as the owner, you're flowing through all the hard problems. Like, you're on the phone on the late nights. Like, everything falls on you.
Your responsibility. Like,
it is.
That's why you're in the seat.
Correct.
You know
it's
what
always it's always your problem at the end of the day. But the more like your leaders are bought into the overall mission, and they take extreme ownership of that, like it's their business. Like, at the end of the day, we want people to build a business like inside of our ecosystem that we've built, and like take ownership and just execute on the things that you need to execute on, make your own decisions. And so far, I think we've done a pretty good job of that. We're continuing to build upon that. But yeah, I mean, it's a long journey, but it's one that is extremely rewarding when you get to affect the lives of other people, not even just yourself. It really, at this point, it doesn't, like, I don't even care about, like,
I know.
It's not even about making more money. That's literally just like a byproduct. It's a byproduct of it, to where, like, affecting the lives of others and building up others and putting them in a place where they can like truly change their lives and change clients' lives and customers' lives. Like, that's what keeps you going every single day. So the more that, like, I think you get your subordinate leaders in your organization as you're trying to scale, bought into your overall vision, bought into your culture, give them the ability to make decisions and have extreme ownership within your business, the better off you're going to be, and the like more successful you're going to be going forward.
For sure. Yeah. For everyone that's trying to like build that team, within your team, basically, of your like subordinate leaders that can take that disciplined initiative in a decentralized leadership environment. Just, it's important to not let yourself slip to where you need to every day try to live your life like you're the superhero in your own movie and set the standard of like, you know, this is what you need to do as a leader. Like, you have to step in, you have to be able to take action. Like, you're never too good for anything. And I know we're constantly trying to still do that. And just never get comfortable, like, period. You can't get comfortable in your own universe. You got to push every single day, because comfort leads to complacency, which leads to failure. So just force yourself to be uncomfortable, force yourself to do the tough things, even though you could definitely slack and take the easy route. It's important to just create as tough an environment for yourself as possible, for your team, to where everyone is pushed to be the best version of themselves, for sure. But we got into a ton of good stuff today. Everybody, we're just making a plug for Jocko here. Everybody go read.
Yeah, I know.
Go read Extreme Ownership.
You want to learn how to lead a group of men or a group of an organization, you follow those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Go read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Great read, great book, great man. And just do the tough things, do the right things, don't take a knee, take violence of action. And just try to be the superhero in your own movie, and just keep going every single day. And
if anyone has any questions on like how to actually decentralize leadership, or how to, as you're scaling, you have those types of questions that we had and that we went through, like, comment or shoot us a DM. Like, we're always looking to help other like young entrepreneurs that are growing a business with these types of things, because it's not something that you don't learn this in school. Like, you don't learn this with most experience that you had, especially even coming from a large organization and then you left to start a business. So like, comment, like, shoot us a DM. We are always looking to talk to other like-minded entrepreneurs.
For sure. Till next time, stay disciplined.